it's kind of interesting because we just started this for fun and
Right.
had been doing it for fun, just like not really. Oh, something went my eye.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you're right.
Right when I started, something went into
Yeah,
my
a
eye.
little contact lens dilemma.
Yeah,
Dude, it's so annoying when that happens. I mean, when I first started wearing contacts as a kid, it was just weird to like put it in your eyeball. I mean, it was like I would have to hold my eye, like you're like freaking out when you're doing it because you're
yeah,
not used to it. Now it's
yeah.
like whatever, I can touch my eyeball. I'm just so
Yeah,
used
no,
to it.
literally
But
something went in my eye that
and
started
you're
making
like,
my eye like
it
jump,
like twitches.
twitches and stuff.
Dude, but sometimes that'll happen to me in the middle of a surgery. Like, my contact will get irritated, or like the worst is I get a damn eyelash in between my contact lens and my eyeball. And I'm sitting there like operating, I'm just like I'm trying to like blink like hard to get it
And
dislodged.
hopefully
And
a
it's obviously
contact,
not gonna work, and I'm just like, this sucks. And
I
then
mean,
you like
hopefully a
suffer for a
contact lens
while.
doesn't fall off into a patient's while they're open.
I mean, I'm wearing like eye protection, so it would like
Yeah,
fall onto the eye protection. But like, oh, dude, it's the worst. You just want to touch it, like rub your eye so bad, and you just can't.
yeah, yeah.
This is
But before
terrible.
I had that little twitch in the eye, we're talking about how there was a big
Yeah, we're
moment.
talking about New York Times.
Two docs, one moment had a big moment a couple of weeks ago, where we got picked up in the New York Times. We had an article. There was an article. There was a opinion piece about health insurance, and I think one of your angry clips was picked up by the New York Times.
Yeah, it was me venting about a peer to peer and all the nonsense with it. But I think I mean, I thought it was awesome. I also thought it was kind of random. I was like, are they trying to find another podcast? Are they sure they
Yeah,
found the right one?
I don't know. No one else is finding us, but the New York Times found
I
us,
know. I
which
thought it
is a
was so
good thing.
funny. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was cool to be part of that segment. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was an interesting segment. I listened to a lot of it, and I talked about a lot of the frustrations there are in medicine. New York Times did a good job covering it, and I think the best thing they did was use our clip.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. No, but they did bring light to like a lot of. I mean, it's almost like it's like a battle between insurance companies and doctors and hospitals, which is not what healthcare should be. There's no care involved if it's like a fight between the insurance companies and the people actually providing the care. But that's what the system has become, and I think they really spotted the light on that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the system is getting so corrupted, right? Which kind of healthcare system is where the payer starts becoming the customer and it all is integrated into one? So a lot of patients buy their health insurance from these big insurance companies like Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and now these companies, United Healthcare, right? And now these companies are the ones buying out physician practices. There's been a big encroachment into physician practices from corporations and corporate entities and private equities, right? Corporate medicine has been the biggest disaster, I think, in medicine, where it's completely taken the soul out of what doctor-patient relationship used to be, in my opinion. I mean, people can disagree. There's a lot of people who may disagree, but it introduced a lot of people who were just focused on profits. All they see is bottom lines. The whole idea that physician practices are there to provide care for patients, that went away, and a bunch of MBAs came in, and their focus was efficiency, bottom line, maximizing profits, and that's why the healthcare is the way it is. And private equity pushes it's a huge thing where the crazy fact is, man, I was reading this is compared to a decade earlier, there were around 307, like, they studied a bunch of practices, 307 practices, 816 private equity acquisitions versus private equity acquired 5,779 practices in the year 2026, I believe. So there's a huge jump
It's a
where,
huge jump. I mean, from like 800 to 5,000 and some. I mean, that's mass, almost an order of magnitude difference.
yeah, by 2021, I think it was 5,709 practices that had been acquired, and even now, I think the push even grew faster and faster since then. And I think more and more practices. I mean, in the area that I am in, I mean, a lot of the cardiology practice have already been acquired by large private equity firms that are consolidating cardiology practice under one umbrella, right? And eventually, the goal is to sell, sell, sell.
Yeah, and that's the question right there is like, what is the goal? I mean, and there's multiple different goals, right? Like the goal from the physician angle. A lot of these sales are being done, not all of them, but a lot of them are being done by people towards the later end of their career, almost as a way to, for one, get a big paycheck. It's like a huge influx of cash into your wallet at the tail end of your career. It doesn't mean you're retiring and now you just become an employee in the practice that you built. And it kind of offloads you a lot of the weight of the administrative side, the management of the practice. You just get your biweekly paycheck rather than having to run the practice. So, I mean, I can see, even though it's annoying that it's happening, and I don't like the encroachment of private equity into medicine, I can certainly see why someone who's in their late 60s, maybe 70s, they've worked their whole life, they've had their own practice for like 40 years now, they just kind of want to slowly fade out and retire eventually in the next 3 to 5 years is their plan, selling the practice for a big chunk of change, and then continuing to practice, continuing to see your same patients, and now not having to deal with any of the management. I can definitely see the appeal.
Yeah, the appeal is there, but I think there's another way out, right? I mean, if physicians did it to themselves and selling out practices where you bring on a bunch of younger partners and give them the promise of like ownership and partnership and being able to kind of eat what you kill and build your practice, and all of a sudden without much say from these younger partners, these older physicians end up selling the practice. There's a big route, man. There in physician, medicine's all about mentorship and transfer of assets from one physician to another. A lot of these physicians, there can be an easy way where one physician can slowly fade away their practice, where the younger physician starts buying out their practice. And there can be easy doctor to doctor transfer of practice, and that would encourage a lot of people to stay in private practice, right? Being able to
Yeah, I
control
mean that used
healthcare.
to exist, right? Like why do you think that stopped, or not stopped, that's not accurate, but why did it fade out and why is it decreased? I mean, doctors buying practices from other older and retiring docs, and the older dude would stay on for a while and then, fade out, and it would almost be like a nice seamless introduction into his cache of patients. That was a common thing. Why has that decreased?
I mean, I think most physicians have lived in the bubble, right? Most physicians have lived in the bubble. They truly don't understand what a private equity firm is, how to manage their finances, how to build value for their practice. I'm not saying all of them. There's a lot of very business savvy physicians out there, but a lot of them truly don't understand what selling to a private equity practice means. It sounds cool. It sounds someone comes to you, talks about efficiency, talks about taking away the load, taking away, uh, you know, HR problems, and making processes seamless, and it's very appealing that it seems like it's going to be a big load off your plate,
Right.
right? So it's appealing in that sense. Though a business savvy person is going to come in and take over, and so I can just focus on what I'm doing best, is providing care to the patient. But a lot of physicians, what they don't realize, their practice is the way it is because they were controlling and making the decisions. Patients flock to the practice; they feel comfortable in the practices. They feel that atmosphere of being welcomed and being taken care of because a physician was making decisions about care and about how the business is run, rather than someone who has never seen a patient in their life. And I do believe that uh, the care is provided best when physicians are in charge, and that the whole idea went away because someone came in with those appealing ideas. Physicians didn't realize that what this could mean for practice. And I know a lot of people that sold their practices, became part of private equity, and have almost always regretted it. There's very few physicians that are happy in that model. The ones that are happy are the ones who had 3 years left for retirement. They work 3 4 years and then they're retired. But most of
Yeah, no,
them,
for sure. I'm just trying to, think like what created all of this, it wasn't just like PE coming in out of nowhere. I mean, the way I think about it is, there's so many factors. One is that, the workforce, the physician workforce was aging, and not as many young doctors are coming in. And so there was difficulty in selling practices because there weren't as many buyers, if you think about it in that sense. Also, like all of the extra stuff, like the extra documentation regulations and requirements that didn't really exist, like 25, 30 years ago. I mean, people had paper charts, scribbled whatever they wanted in them. Now everything is so regulated and needs to be in a set format through the electronic health record, which everyone's got to use now. And it's basically become what, like a template for billing, a template to determine did you do the work, rather than physician notes like they should have been, just notes for you to keep track of your own patients. Like there's been a huge escalation in the workload and the paperwork side. And I think a lot of people, unfortunately, to what you were saying, Humayun, a lot of the doctors were not able to leverage their ability to be efficient in that new system now, a new system that requires a lot more paperwork and clerical type of work. That wasn't the case before. And the people that came up in the environment where you could have a practice just on paper records and you really focus on your own patient care and you build what you wanted to build, and now it's totally changed. That's a huge transition to make. Like we came about in medicine after that switch. But the people that came before, I mean, those are the guys right now that are selling to private equity, right? It's
Yeah.
not our generation, it's the generation before us.
Yeah, I mean, things quite a bit things changed after 2008, 2009, right? A
Yeah.
lot of new regulations and the mandatory EMR, a lot of new regulations on how care is delivered came into play. Over the years, Medicare payments have declined year by year, like so the profits and revenue has gone down. Uh, Running a practice because of regulations, because of EMR, requirements and rising costs from staff to running tests and buying equipment all has gone up. So physicians themselves independently taking on that load, it makes it very hard for a physician to run the practice. And then someone coming in with the infusion of cash that can help a practice bring on new technology, buy new equipment, hire new staff. That's what private equity offered, right? They offered that big infusion of cash to kind of jumpstart that practice again that was dying or struggling, or the
Yeah.
infrastructure was big. But it's grown like crazy, right? I mean, PE ownership of practices was has been now 6.5% in 2024. They own PE firm own 488 U.S. hospitals now, which is a
That's a lot
large.
of hospitals, 488 hospitals.
Yeah. Physicians in private practice dropped from 60.1% to 42%. So majority of the physicians are not used to be private practice or privately owned, and now they're not. Right, hospital owned practices grew from 23.4% to 34.5%. Another trend in physician owned practices going down and down. So there's a huge.
I just think it's amazing that, like, the landscape, the political regulation landscape is like basically anyone else can come in and own the like delivery of care, like the hospital can start buying up and owning physician practices, except the physicians themselves. Like there's a moratorium on physician-owned hospitals, but these random eye bankers and PE guys and VCs and they can come in and own a hospital. Like what background, knowledge, experience, and anything to do with patient care do they have that they should be able to buy, own, or create a hospital? Like literally zero, other than the fact that they can lobby for legislation and prevent physicians from doing it. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Like, I just think that's a funny thing. How
Yeah,
did
the
script?
physicians never have had a lobby, right? They've never had a real lobby, a strong lobby that can kind of push for these things. Physician-owned hospitals were a thing back in the 2000s, and that's completely gone away because of the regulations. I mean, physicians cannot be hospital owners anymore, and that put a lot of a lot of people dependent on the hospitals. They were physician-owned hospitals that a lot of physicians depended on, but part of it had to do with greed. There was a lot of bad apples within the physician community that acted on greed and made a bunch of money in unethical ways as well, and that kind of gave some of these lawmakers fuel to the fire, kind of pass these laws and show examples of these certain docs. Now, most
Yeah,
doctors
I
were
give a
not.
scapegoat.
Yeah, there were scapegoats now, but there's a change, right? There's a change we're seeing based on some of the stuff you read. There's a new bill in New York, S8422, which is starting to kind of push for that every physician practice has to be majority owned by a physician. The physician has to be majority of the voting shares. Physicians have to be majority of the board directors, and has to be majority of the officer positions. The CEO has to be a physician who's licensed as well. So it's not
Basically
just New
putting
York.
leadership back in the hands of the docs, which I think is good. I mean, they're realizing that it's it's been a very serious decay in the level of care across the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
Other, I think a few other states were doing it too, like Connecticut, I believe. There's a couple
Yeah,
others.
Oregon has done it.
Yeah.
Connecticut has done it. There's a few other states that are passing that, and this is going to be something to watch out for this year, where a lot of these pro physician ownership laws are taking. I mean, coming through. Let's see. I think private equity firms with their large pockets and large money are fighting them. Right, they're fighting these laws and trying to see how they can be halted. But it'll be something to watch out for.
And I think, like the spirit of that law, like my takeaway from it is I think it's beneficial. It doesn't ban or outlaw or prevent private equity investment within a physician practice or a multi-specialty group or a hospital. Because I mean, I think that'd be foolish. You shouldn't block investment in something that's our capitalist system. You should be able to invest if you can, and the other party's willing, but it should continue to allow physicians to lead a physician practice, which makes total sense. Like, why should anyone else run a law firm other than the lawyer,
Yeah.
right? Why should a non-engineer be part of an engineering firm and make the decisions? That doesn't make any sense. You don't have an architecture firm that's being run by a non-architect. It's the same thing in a physician practice. Why should someone else run the physician's practice? They're not going to understand it in the way a doctor will. It's just the subject matter. And so I think
Exactly.
it's very logical, but that doesn't mean outside investment shouldn't come in. Outside
Yeah.
investment can always help.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that can completely makes sense where a minority ownership, even if it's like 48%, 49% ownership, the physicians should stay in control and in charge, because in the end, the decisions that a person who's directly taking care of patients is accountable is face to face with the patient and looking the patient in the eye saying, this is what I think is best for your care. They should be also in charge of the big time decisions for the practice, right? Because there comes
Totally.
when someone who's making a decision about patient care who's not face to face with the physician, there's a lack of accountability. They're not really able to kind of bring ethics into play. Whereas physician, most people I tend to believe that have a soul and have some kind of conscience. And when I sit in front of a patient and make a decision about their healthcare, yeah, sometimes there is the idea that this test can make certain revenue or profits, but uh, my whole thinking is that I'm making sure, because this patient is in front of me, I know who they are, what they think. They're speaking to me, and I know I know them personally. I make a more ethical decision compared to someone who's just a manager sitting in the back and forcing a physician to make certain decisions about the practice. I think one thing that is positive though is the rise of agentic AI will allow a lot more physician ownership. It will cut down quite a bit of cost, right? Because now there is a rise in these agentic AI programs that can help quite a bit in running a practice and making things cheaper. So that's another.
Yeah, we should define that a little bit, because like AI, I mean, it's such a huge umbrella term, and AI has changed so much. I mean, dude, like just in the last few years, like I've been involved with some AI stuff, and so have you in different ways in like research and our practices, in workflows, all this stuff, and so has probably a lot of people who are listening into this. I mean, it's pervasive, it's everywhere. You can't get away from hearing about AI. But AI was like first it was machine learning, which was like very advanced, sophisticated algorithms, semi-autonomous, analyze data, give you outputs, blah blah blah. And then it was like the generative AI. That was like the whole large language models, the chat GPTs, the Claudes, where people were using it almost in lieu of a search engine. It could respond to you. It was very logical. It gave great analysis, but it was very like ask a query, get a response. Ask a query, get a response. Give it a specific like, here, I have this consulting agreement. Review it for me. Okay, here you go. And now what you're talking about, Humayun, I think it's like I look at it as like the next evolution of AI is agentic AI, which it's much more than just here's a query, give me an answer. Okay, thank you, Claude. Thank you, ChatGPT. Like, I mean, what do you think about it? Like, how would you define agentic AI, and how is this like the next phase of AI?
Yeah, I mean, there's all these phases and types of different AI users right out there. There's people. I think 95% of the people who say they use AI are still mainly what they're doing is they're going into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and asking a question and getting answers. Right. That's majority. I'd say 95% of the AI users in the world right now are doing that. Then the next phase of AI users, I kind of categorize them three categories. There's people that are not using AI right now, right? Then there's people that are just asking basic questions and just getting answers. Then there's people that are, connecting their everyday apps to AI and having get extracting data from their daily lives and apps to kind of create synthesize knowledge for themselves so they can do a good job. And then there's people that are pretty much designing systems around AI that can automate their whole life, where the AI agent that they're designing is creating things for them automatically, learning from them and their life automatically, and just without too much instruction now is doing things that makes their daily life easy. So I think for me, agentic AI is some kind of combination of using your resources and apps and information around your life to create uh, knowledge and data for yourself slowly, and then eventually training agents to automatically do tasks for you that are mundane and repetitive, and so you can focus on your main tasks that only you can do, right? So I think that's kind of my definition of agentic AI, to kind of automate the mundane and the easy in life rather than
Yeah, almost like anything that could be maybe like what you're saying, mundane, repetitive, clerical, pattern recognition requirements, and allow us as the user or us as the human in this whole thing to be really the decision maker. And it's we use our judgment now rather than using our time to do mundane work. We use our time to think and make judgment calls and make decisions. I mean, that's how I kind of look at this whole new shift in the ability to make AI agents. It really offloads your time and your brain power to do stuff like that.
Yeah, and the physician community has have been one of the biggest adopters of AI. Ambient note taking has is kind of rising like fire. There's a lot of doctors now that are using ambient note taking, where they have a device that's listening to the patient call or patient visit, and the patient visit can be happening, and the physician, the patient are just having a conversation face to face, and this ambient software takes the note, creates very accurate, well formatted notes, extracts all the information, and organizes in a truly SOAP note way, and suggests ICD codes and CPT codes, and even create patient instructions for the patient to remember later on, right? So physicians are using it at a basic level, and some physicians are using it at an advanced level, right? There's that the cardiologist. There was a story about cardiologists who used Claude Code to create certain softwares, and he actually won the first place in agentic coding recently, and he had no coding
Really?
background. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Uh, that's yeah. I mean, I kind of, because I've been doing that too as well. I mean, I've shown you a lot of the softwares that I've
Yeah,
created. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I've been creating customized software for my practice.
Bro, we should have nominated you, dude.
Yeah, I'm a cardiologist and creating softwares and Cloud Code. But yeah, I mean, I've been doing that too. So physician, I mean, just today I was having a meeting with the staff, and we came up with the idea that we need this order made, and it seemed like a pretty big task. And I just went into Cloud Code and kind of wrote some instructions and went off to have a meeting and came back, and it was done and ready to go. It was uploaded on our practice portal page that I've created. So things like that,
Dude,
where
that's
they can
awesome.
just automatically work on its own without much supervision. I can just tell it what to do with a voice command or a text command, and just come in and it's taken care of without me having to go hire a software engineer to build me a platform that can do that for me. I mean, that's game changing, right?
Yeah, I mean it's huge. I mean, and like the data about it, like people that are using the ambient listening, and AI generates the notes, kind of like you were talking about. On average, they're saving like an hour and a half, 2 hours per clinic day. It's reducing the charting time tremendously. I mean, that's massive. I mean, can you imagine? Instead of finishing your clinic at 5, and now you got 2 hours of notes that you're either going to do right after clinic, or you're going to go home, and now you're going to be kind of doing it while interacting with your family. Now you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
so some of the data that's interesting, right? 85% of US healthcare leaders are investing into agentic AI in this year 2026. So that's a huge percentage of healthcare leaders, right?
But
Uh,
I would like to dive into that for a second. Like healthcare leader is such a, I don't know, a vague and odd term. We just finished talking about the fact that like a lot of the so-called leadership in healthcare is not physicians, and it's transitioning away from physicians with the private equity creep and the hospital ownership practices, insurance companies sticking their hands in. And so if healthcare leaders means that segment of healthcare, and I don't know, maybe this sounds negative, maybe it doesn't, I don't really care. If that's what it means, I could see that being subverted in a way that these agentic AIs could start, in their view, replacement of physicians rather than augmenting physicians. And that's where the danger comes in, because now you are now using these agentic things for pattern recognition, all this stuff, and then using them as a decision making tool, a clinical judgment tool as well, which is not what they're designed for. There's no real doctor patient relationship, or you're going to force, maybe inappropriately force physicians to use more AI tools just to artificially make one doctor more efficient and then have less in the workforce. I don't think like it's all going to be good if that's the way it'll be used. That's something that I'm interested to see how it plays out, and if it becomes mandated that, oh, in our health system, doctors have to use X, Y, and Z. Doctors have to be double checked by these agentic AI solutions we've created for imaging and all this stuff.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, in the end, healthcare systems, any business, any corporation, wants what they want to do is cut cost. The biggest source of cost and expenses in any hospital is the administration. There's you've seen that chart probably, that the physician salaries have stayed flat, but the amount of cost going
Shot
towards
up. Yeah.
management and healthcare administrator has shot up, right?
Right, right, right.
That cost is the one that can be the biggest target for decrease. There's a lot of people. We both work in hospitals, and we know there's in the hospital there's literally three people doing one job and trying to accomplish what one AI agent can do in 2 hours. These three people are doing in like 1 month. Uh, so so
They're sending emails to create a meeting so they can talk about emailing about the meeting.
I mean, you and I have both attended these meetings. These meetings, a topic that's being discussed that can be taken care of within seconds is being discussed over and over, and some person whose
Yeah.
job is to create this little program, and then they have to create a flyer about this. That's a whole topic of a discussion, and that one person does that for the whole week, and that's what they're assigned to, and they've been working on creating this little program. This can be done now in 2 minutes, and this we
Yeah.
don't need as many. I mean, it's kind of harsh to say, but there's a lot of administration bloat within hospitals and corporations and practices, and that bloat will be cut down. Unfortunately, a lot of people, I do believe, will lose their job in healthcare administration before doctors lose their job.
Dude,
The
I don't
doctors,
think it's harsh at all. I mean, it's just the reality. If something can be done better, faster, and cheaper, it
yeah.
should.
And doctors, the in the end, the physicians or providers are the ones that where the actual revenue is being created. When the work that they're doing is where the revenue is being created. Everything else is kind of supporting the physicians, right? Um, in my opinion, nurses, physicians, people at the healthcare forefront, right? These are the people that at the end are taking care of the patients, where insurance companies and the government is paying the care is paying for the care of the patient. Everything else is supporting that, and that's where the bloat is. So I think that's what's going to go first before physicians go. There's an interesting story about you've heard of Deep Blue, right? The IBM
Yeah.
computer that was designed to play chess, and it ended up beating a grandmaster at chess, and that's when the first
Yeah, I think it beat
introduction.
Gary Kasparov, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gary Kasparov, and Gary Kasparov, a few years later, was I think involved in another freestyle chess tournament. And in that chess tournament, what happened was they pitted grandmasters, highly advanced AI, versus novices plus AI. And what that free range tournament showed was people, neither the grandmaster won, neither the AI won. Who won were the novices, accompanied by the AI models. So human plus AI models is what beat all the grandmasters and all the AI models. So I think there's some value in that, where human kind of you know, humans' adaptability to different situations and being aware of the world and the surroundings and to other human beings, combined with artificial intelligence, will go much further than artificial intelligence alone or humans alone, right? So that I think that's a
Yeah,
big
I
lesson.
agreed.
And I think doctors combined with these AI models will, I think, enhance healthcare delivery, cut cost, and I think will allow private practice to thrive. And that's just my feeling right now. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
I
how
think,
you.
I mean, that's, kind of anything that is requiring anything digital, anything like this, any automated task or task that could be automated, analyzing data, that is going to be right at that junction of human and AI integration. And I think, if you look at what medical schools are teaching in some of the more cutting edge institutions like Stanford, has already directly integrated actual AI coding. I mean, not hard coding like we used to do, C++ plus plus and stuff. I mean, it's just like using AI tools to help you code, like Claude Cowork and things like this, and really creating agents in their actual clinical rotations. That's like a part of it because I think, the educators realize that this is here to stay. This is only going to grow and expand. And those that are seamlessly coming up through medical education and their training with this as a tool, they're going to succeed, and maybe not even succeed, but they're going to take the charge and become the next leaders
Yeah.
because this is where it's all going.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be physicians versus AI. What is going to be the physicians who can use AI versus physicians who cannot use AI.
Yeah.
And physicians who can use AI, who understand AI, who can create agentic models around their practices, will be the ones who will succeed in this changing world.
Yeah. No,
Which
totally.
brings me to our next topic about physician burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah. With there's a recent report that showed that physician burnout is at an all-time low right now, where the year by year the amount of people who are reporting burnout in some fields is declining. And a lot of it has to do with a lot of automation and possibly documentation decrease because of these AI agents within
Right.
different practices, right? So I think that's kind of exciting as well. What do you think about that? Did you read that?
Yeah, the burnout stuff is interesting. I mean, I will say that, it did have a very significant drop from prior years. It was hovering almost around 50% in the prior several years. I think 48, 49% of physicians reported being burnt out. And, we can get into a little bit in a moment what that actually even means, because burnout means very different things to different people. But, the most recent year was like 42%. So it is a drop from almost 50 to 42. If you just look at it at face value, that's still a very high percentage. It's still over 40% of the entire physician workforce in the United States is still reporting burnout. I mean, that's still high. So to me, it's an improvement, but it's still really shitty.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the decline is pretty. So 2023, so 2021, like the peak of COVID, the burnout for physician was 63%.
yeah,
And that's when physicians were being yelled at and screamed at from a lot of people who did not believe that COVID existed. 63% burnout in 2021, then it went down to 48.2% in 2023. 43.2% in 2024, now reported 41.9% in 2025. So that's a steady decline. And I mean, COVID was a weird time, and a lot of physicians were burnt out. But
yeah. I
there's
mean, I'm not surprised that there was like a huge drop off from COVID to some sense of normalcy, but it's kind of like, plateauing out. I think it's going to hover around 40-ish%. Because that's the truth. I mean, you talk to your colleagues. I mean, this is not a surprising data point to me. Like, there's a lot of people that I interact with that are in academia, in private practice, in hospital employed groups that are kind of very much dissatisfied with their day to day. I mean, there's moments that are awesome, there's moments that really suck, but a lot of it is just kind of like, oh, okay, I got to do this, or oh, here's more paperwork, or here's another message to deal with. It's not all doom and gloom, but I'm not very surprised by the fact that
yeah,
40% of docs are still reporting feelings of burnout.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the most common specialties that reported the most burnout were emergency medicine, oncology, and urology. And
I that It doesn't surprise me about emergency medicine, oncology, but urology had the
I think
most burnout.
urology is burnt out because nurses keep calling them to put Foley's in. Like,
I mean, that's hilarious. I mean, honestly, the urologists I interact with, they're like the chillest dudes. They all seem pretty happy to me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm equating, outward appearance of happiness or whatever, jovial nature, meaning you're not burnt out. But right, that I think that's what's important to define like what burnout really is.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's I think in my residency, I remember urology was the worst service to consult because they were always pissed off. They never wanted to come. So there may be something to it. Burnout, I think emergency medicine for sure. I mean, those days are tough, man.
Yeah.
And they do 8 hour shifts, sometimes 12 hour shifts, but it's intense, it's hard. They're constantly being yelled at. All services hate them, right? The whole hospital hates them.
Because I mean their job is to give other people more work. I mean that's
Yeah,
not fully true. That's not their job. But
yeah,
like that's how we view them when we're on call and you get a phone call and it's the ER. You're like, oh my God, But that's just how it is. Like that's the banter between specialties. But I also kind of it was a little surprised by ER in a sense because 100% the work is tough and you're on the go when you're at the job and it can be stressful, but you're also not working a ton of shifts. I mean, I know a lot of ER docs because I get consulted and we talk with them all the time. A lot of them have so many side hustles and side gigs and side businesses. They're honestly some of the most like financially savvy physicians that I know because a lot of them are working maybe 8 to 12 shifts in a month.
yeah. They
Like
always have a different
they have
investment.
more days off in an average month than days that they work. Like I can't say that about myself, I mean, I'm working 5 out of 7 days almost all the time, and then plus the weekends when I'm on call, and then when I'm not on call, I still round on the weekends off, and so like in comparison to that, I'm surprised that with working way less, there's still that amount of burnout.
Yeah, I wonder if some of these decline in this burnout rate is related to just post-COVID slow decline after physicians being burnt out. A lot of physicians taking back and cutting down on their responsibilities, and maybe millennials and Gen Zers coming into medicine and saying that just working nonstop. Creating unhappy marriages and ignore children is not the life to live, and maybe there's more to life just than working all the time, and we're choosing to work less and kind of prioritize life as well. Maybe it is infusion of millennials into medicine and leadership roles that's allowed that, right? Maybe
Yeah.
there's less of a burnout because we as a generation don't believe in just overburdening ourselves with work and trying to focus also on our life, our health, our families, our wives, our kids, our parents. So I think and the generation before us, for them, work was a big deal, and they were very most of them, not saying all of them, were very one-minded, where they work was their life.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. I mean, I think there is more of a balance in our generation and probably even better balance in the generation below us. Yeah, another interesting thing, Humayun, from this that I recall in this most recent survey was that the rate of burnout is still higher, like markedly higher in female physicians than it was in male physicians. That female physicians felt burnout more than males did. And I
Yeah.
think, like medicine, even though there's been a lot of advances, it's still not really, unfortunately, like a forgiving specialty for women. In just one simple example, I mean, in orthopedics, in our residency program, and I teach all the residents and stuff, it's very difficult when they get pregnant and have a kid. Like they don't get a ton of time off. And there's almost like we don't put pressure on them. I don't, none of the other attendings do, but like they're working until the last day. I mean, like 9 months in, we're doing fracture cases, and one of the residents, she's pregnant. She's wearing two lead vests, to shield the baby, the fetus, from the X-ray. She's sweating like crazy. The lead vests are heavy. She's 9 months in, and like and no one's forcing her to do it, but like it's just like this mindset exists, and like she believes that the other residents believe that she's got to do it, you know. I don't know. I mean, that's just one example, but I'm just trying to understand why that gender difference exists. I mean, it would be good to have a female opinion on
I mean,
here.
yeah, I mean, we need to have a two dogs, one mic with a female. It's way overdue, so we gotta have someone of a different gender come on. But
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I'd be the wrong person to speak on their behalf. But I think first of all, they don't get the same kind of respect and appreciation in a lot of fields as men do, right? I mean, it's unfortunate. There's a lot of very capable, highly motivated, highly highly skilled female physicians, but sometimes they walk in with a with a medical student who's also wearing a white coat, and the patients end up looking at the medical student and addressing them as a doctor, and they always kind of assume that the female that's walking in with them is a physician, right? Especially if they're not wearing a white coat or just walking in with scrubs. It's a mindset. So first of all, there's not that much that kind of respect given from a lot of patient point of view, right? Unfortunately, that's the recognition of them being physicians. Now, I think women, because of the underrepresentation in certain fields, they do feel like they have to work so much more harder than men to get to a certain point. I mean, we know, how hard it is to be. We all worked with physicians. They're women in fields like cardiothoracic surgery, cardiology, orthopedic surgery. I mean, like you talked about, during pregnancy, getting through that while being pregnant and working such a grueling job, being a surgeon. Then in the end, feeling that guilt of going to work, leaving your kid behind, but also when you don't go to work and stay home, and then there's that guilt of missing out on training and not being there to support the rest of the residents, and other residents having to pick up for you. So there's a constant guilt if they do go to work or if they don't go to work, right? So
Yeah,
if
right.
they decide to cut back on their hours and go part time, there's guilt of, oh, I put all these years into medicine, and then now I'm going part time. But if they go full time, and there's guilt of, hey, there's maybe society tells me that I need to be there for my family, for my kids, and my kids are missing me, and there's a guilt for that too. So I think that has a huge role to play in a higher burnout rate in women. I mean, it's unfortunate. It is that's a reality, and I think we need to have more female voices to kind of bring out that idea in medicine as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing is, speaking of mental health, we had there was a big executive order that was passed based on that text. It's a very interesting story.
It's our your boy Joe Rogan.
My boy Joe Rogan. I mean, I used to be a big Joe Rogan fan, and
Yeah,
I used to listen to him quite a bit before. I don't know, it just got kind of boring.
yeah, I kind of went off the deep end and very like repetitive stuff.
Repetitive stuff, same thing over and over. But Joe Rogan texted our president Donald Trump, "Hey man, have you heard about ibogaine?" And
Yeah,
Trump texted back, "Yeah, you want FDA approval?" And there it was. There it came, right? The executive order that allowed, psychedelics to be possibly used for PTSD, and expediting that process through FDA approval within the next 6 to 12 months. Very interesting story of how it came about with Joe Rogan's text to Donald Trump, and then it moving forward, getting all the classifications, and now FDA moving full force and getting it approved for PTSD treatment, especially in the vets.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stipulations with this executive order, but one, like you mentioned, fast tracking it through the FDA, not taking the standard multiple year process, earmarking funds for it specifically. I mean, the states are doing it too, but at the federal level also, I think it's like a $50 million grant to fund studies and research and clinical trials and stuff. And then within the veteran population too, specifically looking at the vets as a population because they have a higher percentage of PTSD than the average Americans because of their experiences in war and combat. Looking at them and trying to get the treatment for them is another stipulation of it. And this drug ibogaine, it does have some data. It's not just some BS that Joe Rogan is hawking, even though he does have some fringe views on his podcast as they relate to medicine. This one actually has shown some promise in combating dependency and addiction on things like cocaine, alcoholism, and also separately for PTSD treatment and treatment refractory cases. And a lot of psychedelics have. I mean, this is just one example. I mean, it comes from a plant. But there's a lot of psychedelics like LSD, psilocybin have both shown in real studies that even like a one-time dose can have lasting effects for months and months for depression and anxiety. So, I mean, there is something to be said about it. These aren't just tools to get high. But there's a negative stigma around them. They're classified as Schedule 1 drugs. And that's another portion of this executive order, that Schedule 1 may be a false thing that we've put on these so that it's more limitations to research. And maybe they're not that harmful. Maybe there are some medical benefits and that needs to be reevaluated.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I find it as a positive news. I mean, not maybe the way they're doing or going about it, but this was a long time coming. Should have been done a long time ago. But I think the speed of which they're moving forward with it is kind of alarming. I think we talked about, we did an episode on different books that we read, and one of the books that I discussed was How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan. And it's a book about psychedelics and the different effects it can have on people's depression, AD, PTSD, addiction. It's an amazing book, and it opened my eyes. I read that book in maybe 2016 or 15 when it first came out, and there's a documentary on Netflix about it too, of how he experiments with different psychedelics and goes on different trips with psilocybin, LSD, DMT, and not ibogaine, but he talks about all these different psychedelics and the effects they can have and how it can change your mentality. Right? There's a whole practice of microdosing with psychedelics within the Silicon Valley community, and it's been going on for ages. And there's been a lot of successful people who've experimented with psychedelics to kind of enhance their thought process and improve creativity, and even help with some depression and anxiety. So there's a lot of benefits out there. I just am alarmed by this fast track process. Ibogaine has not even gone through phase one trials in human beings yet, right? There's been some concerns in the past about cardiac toxicity, and in the past they've given ibogaine mixed with magnesium to help prevent those cardiac toxicity symptoms. I think even in animal studies there was some concern for cardiac arrhythmias with ibogaine. So my concern is if we move in a fast process, a lot of people will jump to, it's exciting. I mean, when you have PTSD, you have depression, you have anxiety, and it's refractory to any treatment, you're looking for any kind of solutions, and there could be large amounts of population that might jump to the treatment that's being fast tracked. And these are the same people that were worried about fast tracking a vaccine, and now fast tracking, something that has not gone through any clinical trials is risky. I think we should definitely remove these drugs from Schedule 1, do proper clinical trials over the years, get actual data, try other, kind of be open to different psychedelics, psilocybin, LSD, of the effects they could have, do it at a monitored setting, and then come up with a solution and present it and do it in the right way instead of fast tracking this. I don't know what the rush is.
Yeah, that's a good corollary that you made. Like the same pundits that were very anti-COVID, anti-vaccine, like RFK, like Joe Rogan, people that are so outspoken about the COVID vaccine being like a hoax or whatever, all that stuff, and that it shouldn't have been fast-tracked. It was forced upon the population, but now they're pining for this to be fast-tracked. I mean, it would be very interesting to see in the coming months which companies and corporate entities arise and line up and start making a ton of money off of this, off of the sale behind it, the manufacturing behind it, the research, the supply chain, and the distribution. Because if these same people somehow have a hand to play in that, I mean, it just shows that the cronyism and nepotism within this administration, it doesn't know any limits, right?
Yeah.
So I would be very interested to see that part, because I'm a little skeptical that this is all just one random podcaster. I mean, not random, he's the biggest podcaster on
Yeah.
earth, I guess.
I mean,
But
he's
one
been talking about
podcaster,
this.
huh?
He's been talking about psychedelics for a very long time. I mean, Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, since like his Fear Factor days, he's
yeah,
been advocating for psychedelics. But like, I'm just saying that, it just seems to me random that an executive order would pass, changes to the FDA regulation about psychoactive drugs, which a lot of these drugs, since they've been Schedule 1, physicians who are going to be prescribing them don't have any real training on them, you
yeah,
know, because they haven't been taught, they haven't been used, we don't know the dosage. And now because a podcaster has texted the president, it's getting fast tracked.
yeah. So
I'm
that's the
just very
crazy part. I mean,
skeptical.
I do clinical trials, and we do phase two, phase three, phase four clinical trials, and drug for discovery, from animal trials, moving on to phase one trials, then phase two, phase three, phase four, and mass market. It takes almost 8 to 10 years, right? 8 to 10 years to do proper studies in large populations, do worldwide studies. I mean, in other countries, because you have to include other ethnicities and how they would react to these drugs, right? Um, so there's a lot of training that needs to be done. When I do clinical trials, I'm one of the few physicians that's using that drug for the first time, observing its effect, getting used to the dosing. And as a physician, I'm learning about these drugs, and then slowly this gets, and the companies find out how physicians use them. What are some things that can be done? What are some dosing schedules? What are some alterations that could be made to make it better for patients, right? So if we're going to fast track that, we're never going to find out what are some nuances of the drug, what are some side effects, because you only find out side effects when they're in large populations. I mean, you have to do enough trials, you have to have the right p-value and the n, to actually get the right statistically significant data on if these truly are significant, right? So fast tracking over 6 months, and possibly having these drugs available to us in 2 to 3 years time is it's alarming. I'll be very careful. I mean, but I think it's a positive direction. I just don't know if the delivery and execution will be. The other thing I wanted to mention was, it is an executive order. And what is there to say that these drugs, we go through this process and in 2 years something's available and the presidency changes and another president comes in and says, no, this executive order needs to be reversed, and they just reverse it, and then what happens? Right? So it needs
Which
to be.
that could be a very big negative thing if, a lot of people start taking this who have PTSD or refractory depression and they feel awesome. And now it's, capped and the executive order is removed. And it was found that it did actually really help a lot of people. I mean, I'm not saying it won't help people. I'm just saying I'm skeptical about it just
Yeah.
based on how the whole process went down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something to keep an open mind for. A lot of people have been, I mean, this is from the 60s and 70s, right? The psychedelics were kind of classified as Schedule One. There was all these ideas of psychedelics causing psychosis and people jumping out of the windows and running in front of the cars. A lot of psychedelics get confused with PCP and other methamphetamine and cocaine. I think there's two different classes of drugs. I mean, psychedelics have a complete different action, and the way they work is completely different. So a lot of people confuse and put all these drugs in the same category. And I think that mindset needs to change, and people need to understand that psychedelics could possibly have a lot of benefits, but we need to find those benefits. Just like we talked about the peptides, we need to find out about those risks and benefit, and in a manner that's been established and has shown to be proven time and time again. Just like
Yeah,
people
but
are jumping
that's
on.
the thing. If this gets fast tracked, who knows? I mean, Joe Rogan's a big peptide guy too. You never know. And a text to Trump next week, and now there's an executive order that peptides
Yeah,
get fast tracked as well. You
BP one
never
five
know.
seven is everywhere.
I know.
So, but yeah, we'll see. Let's see. It's an interesting, changing world, and I think we'll continue to discuss interesting topics every week that come in and kind of keep it more recent. Hopefully once in a while have guests as well. So I think it's a new format that we'll see if it something we kind of find interesting, because we're doing this podcast for us.
Yeah.
Kind of keep ourselves up to date as well.
No, it keeps it fresh for sure.
Yeah.
I like that style.
Yeah. All right, man. Well,
All right, guys.
time to
Thanks for
sleep.
tuning in. We'll catch you next time.
All right. Bye.